I'm Algenon Cash, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest economic development announcements in North Carolina history. Aerospace innovator JetZero has selected Greensboro as the site for a massive $4.7 billion manufacturing facility at Piedmont Triad International Airport. It's a project that could create over 14,000 jobs and position the Triad as a national leader in advanced manufacturing. Here to help us unpack what this means for Greensboro is a man who knows the city deeply. Robbie Perkins is a former mayor, accomplished real estate broker, and longtime advocate for smart growth. Robbie, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for locking in today.
Well, Algenon, thank you so much for having me. These are exciting times in the Triad and the Carolina Core.
They are. And this recent announcement that I was just talking about at the outro is not only exciting for the Carolina Core, but sounds like it's exciting for all of North Carolina. I mean, the largest economic development announcement in history. I am even hearing over the weekend from nearby states that say this is even going to have a positive impact on them as well. I mean, that's just how large this is. What was your initial reaction when you heard the JetZero announcement?
Well, we knew it was coming. It wasn't a well-kept secret, and so we had some time to kind of envision what could be with the 10,000 jobs that were rumored to come here. And when the announcement was made, and it was 14,700 plus jobs, we were stunned because the Toyota job number was 5,200, and that was huge, and this is almost three times that. So the fact that we already have an aviation sector at uh, at Piedmont Triad International, and that sector will be more than doubled by this one facility is incredible. You think we've got Honda Jet, we've got Hayco, we've got Boom, we've got others out there, and we already have a robust aviation sector. To have this one land in at our airport is incredible.
Yeah, I share with your sentiment. I do recall when they had announced that Greensboro was in the running. So I think it was on people's radar from that particular announcement. But anytime something like this comes all the way through, it just feels really, really good. I had a great conversation last night with the private equity group out of Atlanta, and this was the first thing they were talking about was this announcement that just hit Greensboro, and I think people are already literally over the weekend are already starting to look at Greensboro and the Triad area and are looking for opportunities just that quickly. So I guess, Robbie, you've been around a long time. You've seen a lot of deals get put together, even in your role as mayor. You've been part of some of these larger economic development announcements. And then you're just a real long time advocate for regional growth. So help my audience. My audience is made up of different people, investors, community leaders, professionals, young people. What does this impact mean just for ordinary citizens in the Triad area?
Well, this growth is unprecedented, and we already knew we needed a substantial amount of housing. And what I think it means to the individual citizen of the region is that housing prices and rents are going to be going up because there's no way that we can put enough product in place to have prices stay where they are today.
So yeah, well let's elaborate on that because I think maybe for some they see this as a really positive announcement, but I guess if you're someone that has already been struggling with the housing shortage we have here in North Carolina, which we've been talking about that for years. I know the North Carolina Chamber just put out a big report saying that we need somewhere around a $450 billion. There could be a $450 billion impact just from the housing shortage here in North Carolina right now. So if you're someone that's already been struggling with higher than normal rents, I guess Robbie, you're predicting that these rents may go even higher.
Well, I think they're going to go higher, but I think our wages are finally going to start to increase. One of the big things with the, Jet Zero announcement is the projected average wage will be $89,000. and that's well above the 60,000 current median income wage in Guilford County. So that's gonna help lift wages across the board when something that's as large as this hits.
You mentioned a moment ago, you talked about Honda Jet. You mentioned the Toyota mega site that happened down in Randolph County. I've for a long time have said that Greensboro has been on a real upward trajectory in terms of being a leader in the Triad regional economy. This recent announcement from JetZero, how does it impact that trajectory? Where do you see Greensboro now after this announcement last week? Where do you see Greensboro 10 or 20 years from now?
Well, we have all of a sudden we have become the third leg of the economic development stool for the state of North Carolina. In the past, it was always Charlotte and Raleigh, or Raleigh and Charlotte, and Greensboro was kind of an afterthought. The triad was an afterthought. But with this announcement, plus Toyota, plus Boom, plus everything else we've got going with all the colleges and universities across the region, we are. On everyone's radar screen. Institutional capital is coming into the triad. We expect that trend to increase dramatically. We think land prices, even though they're high now, will continue to get higher. We're going to have to invest heavily in our infrastructure, our regional infrastructure, particularly water and sewer. I know there are studies underway to try to get that off the ground, but we're going to have to put the pedal to the metal, act with a sense of urgency to meet all of these new jobs.
And also, I mean, Robbie, you're a former mayor of Greensboro. You're also a candidate for mayor this year. So you've got a big election coming up here at the end of the year. You came on the show earlier this year. You spoke very highly and positive about Greensboro. Let's assume you win in November, and now you're the leader of Greensboro for the next few years. With this announcement from JetZero, how does that change the trajectory of your own potential administration if you were to be the mayor of Greensboro?
Well, I already have been campaigning on a sense of urgency, but that's even more so with this type of announcement. We have got to put more housing of all price ranges on the market. I mean, this is not just an affordable housing piece. This is from top to bottom. We've got to get more supply out there, and it's got to be of all housing types. I think we've got to look at potential new housing types as well. Also, I think the only way we're going to meet this need is to continue to rezone and permit more dense developments. I think density will be the thing of the future. Some of the controversy over the David Couch development up in Summerfield, now unincorporated Guilford County. There's an urgency, particularly since it's so close to the airport. There's a real urgency to get that going and in place. We just can't sit back and let it come to us. We have to aggressively work on our planning and infrastructure piece so that we're prepared for all of these new jobs.
You know what, Robbie? I love the insight that you're providing about housing. Again, I didn't think about this before we had this conversation today, but you're exactly right. I mean, we're already dealing with a housing shortage, so that could exacerbate itself if we don't get proactive about making sure that we're putting more housing on the ground. How else do you see the Jet Zero announcement impacting other asset classes within the real estate sector? So, I mean, what do you see happening now at this point with office, industrial, and some of the other asset classes?
Well, when you have a corporate announcement this large, there'll have to be support services provided by other companies, and those spinoffs will really hit all product types. I think we're going to see some limited office demand. Engineering firms and such that will be part of the construction process, and then their ability to support Jet Zero going forward will create some demand for office, particularly in that airport submarket. I think the industrial demand is already proving to be pretty strong. We had a really good first quarter of absorption, and based on what we're hearing about deals in the market, we should have a strong year end as well. The retail space is already heated up just because we didn't get anything built for 10 years. But I think this will put us on the map so that other types of retailers that aren't in our market now will want to come into Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point.
Yeah, and you know, obviously for a major investment like this to land at PTI, one of the things that I've been really blown away by, you know, my last 23 years in the business and my professional career and being more active talking to good folks like you and others in the economic development community, I've really been blown away by the forward thinking at PTI. I mean, the forward thinking to make sure you have the land and the resources available for a JetZero, a Honda Jet, a Boom Supersonic, all these types of investments to come in. You've spent time in the mayor's office. I mean, speak to that. I mean, how do we continue to make sure that we maintain that level of forward thinking so even 20, 30 years from now, as a region, we're landing these types of investments?
Well, a lot of it is infrastructure planning, and nothing gets done with roads, and water and sewer, fiber optics. Nothing gets done quickly. So you have to pay attention to these things because you just can't snap your fingers and make them happen. We have to look at where the growth is going to occur, and then put a capital plan together to make sure that the necessary infrastructure is in place when needed. For example, regional water and sewer system. It has to be implemented. There are preliminary studies going on right now. In fact, there's been a request to the state legislature to provide another $1 million to do more engineering work on a regional system. But I see something like this as being imperative to handle not only the residential growth, but the commercial growth as well. Anytime you get a JetZero with 14,000 plus employees, you get suppliers with at least another 14,000 jobs
Hmm.
and probably many more than that to support them. So you combine that with Toyota, it makes your head spin.
Yeah, I mean, where Robbie, where are all these employees coming from? I mean, I know we've got some really great educational institutions and community colleges throughout the region, but do we reach some point of capacity here? I mean, how do we keep fueling people into these jobs that are being created?
Well, one thing that we've got is we're a heck of a good place to live. And the Sun Belt is very attractive. North Carolina is going to be one of the fastest growing states in the country. We'll pass Georgia and Ohio, according to the demographers, over the next 5 to 10 years in terms of
Hmm.
total population. So we'll be the seventh largest state in the country pretty soon. So in migration here is definitely in our favor. The weather, the climate is really good. The fact that we could get around here is really good. You look at our highway systems in the Triad. We are really ahead of the curve. And you've got to give a shout out to Doug Gallion and his role as chairman of NCDOT, and Mike Fox and his 9 years as chairman of the board of NCDOT. Those two individuals deserve a huge amount of credit for putting the highway infrastructure in place in our region.
Yeah, I like Mike a lot. Mike and I actually went through the North Carolina Leadership Forum together, so I had a chance to learn a lot more about him. He is a smart individual when it comes to infrastructure and certainly someone that is forward thinking. You know, Robbie, the last time you were on the show, you talked a little bit about downtown Greensboro being the next mega site for the Triad region. Again, with this announcement from JetZero, what are the ripple effects into that vision that you have for downtown Greensboro?
Well, I don't think there's any question that all of the announcements, including Jet Zero, make it more important, even more important for us to focus on our downtown area and be much more successful in the downtown. And number one thing we've got to do in our downtown is create more residential units. Number two thing we've got to do is we've got to pay better attention to detail along our streets and our storefronts, and we've got to take the abandoned storefronts and repurpose them, and then we have to plan for what's needed next. And my vision here is that we've got an opportunity to build a real city in downtown Greensboro. We can bring the two universities, two major universities in UNCG and North Carolina A&T, and take their non-academic functions and move them into the downtown, similar to what Wake Forest has done in Winston-Salem and Duke has done in Durham, and really energize our downtown as a place that's buzzing 24/7.
With an announcement like this, everybody got very excited. I mean, 14,000 plus jobs, nearly $5 billion in capital investment. I agree with you. I think that investment can expand. The number of jobs can expand as you get these supplier companies coming in and wanting to be closer to JetZero. But how long do you project, Robbie, before we actually feel the effects of the announcement? We got the announcement last week, but there's a lot that has to come together over the next few months and the next few years. How long before ordinary residents start to feel the impact?
Well, we're already, we will already feel the impact early before they open based on the amount of construction dollars being spent. You can't underscore enough about construction in our economy and how it benefits the individuals that already live here, because those dollars flow through the local economy and they make all of us more money.
So I mean, do you have any idea when that construction actually begins or?
I think they're planning to have a portion of the operation up and running in 2027.
Okay, so maybe a couple more years before we.
A couple of years up and running, but that means they're working on it, in 6 months. And they've got the beauty of the PTI site is it was prepared and we were ready for something like this with the grading done on the north side of I-73 and the bridge connecting the current runway and taxiway system to that side of the interstate was in place. So they've got a flat site that's ready to go, and they can move on it very quickly.
With JetZero being a startup, it's not a Boeing, it's not an Airbus. What are some of the risks that you think Greensboro residents should be aware of?
Well, I think in any time you've got an announcement like this, there are some risks. There's a risk that the project just won't work, but they've already got a substantial R&D team in San Diego working on this, and they're convinced that the airframe that uses the fuselage as part of the wings is the way to go in the future. The types of composite materials that they're using definitely makes the aircraft lighter and more efficient. And when you come to think about it, Algenon, we're all flying around on airplanes that probably were designed 60 or 70 years ago. So it's time for this new generation of aircraft to come into play, and I really like being on the front end of this technology. It makes sense not only for commercial applications, and the names we've heard so far, United Airlines and Alaska Airlines, but also for our military component. And one of the reasons I'm sure they picked this area is we're so close to Fayetteville and Fort Bragg and all the military installations in the eastern part of our state.
Yeah, I saw a meme on Facebook over the weekend that said North Carolina was the first in flight, and now we might be the first in future flight. And so that is really good to see that type of an operation and that level of advanced manufacturing come to North Carolina. Just a
You know,
couple more questions before I let you go, Robbie. We've hit on a couple times that you are a candidate for mayor. You certainly have my support and the support of the show in November. But let's assume you do win in November. As mayor, how do you keep these types of announcements going? What do you plan to deploy to make sure you get the next big JetZero announcement?
well, our strategy is twofold. Number one, you've got to handle what's coming in. And number two, you've got to plan for the future. And I think the discussions are related, but they're not exactly the same. Planning for what's already been committed is certainly our number one priority. We've got to service, number one, the businesses that are already here and those that are coming. And we've got to give them good basic services as a city. We've got to give them good public safety. We've got to provide housing. We've got to provide, the water and sewer service. And we got to make sure that our citizens in Greensboro can get to these jobs. I mean, we need to have fixed route buses headed to the airport for JetZero, just like we need to have them headed to the Toyota mega site for Toyota, or even northwest or northeast of Greensboro to Procter and Gamble. I mean, we've got to get our folks that live in our jurisdiction to the jobs. But I really think this regional water and sewer deal is the game changer for this whole region. And that doesn't get done in 2 or 3 years. This is a 10, 15-year plan. And we've got to attack it with a sense of urgency today so that it does get done in 10 or 15 years.
To the folks over in Forsyth County and Winston-Salem that saw this announcement in the last several days, what do you say to them?
I say it's a win for one is good for all. But what I'm seeing happening in Winston-Salem is amazing. Algenon, as you know, NAI Piedmont Triad has recently established a new real estate office in downtown Winston-Salem. We think Winston-Salem is a perfect place for growth and expansion, and we put our money and our resources into it to back that up. So I'm a huge believer in the quality of life in Winston-Salem and the added dimension that it brings to the triad, because there's lots of neat and cool stuff in Winston-Salem. What Wake Forest has done in the Innovation Quarter, what the hospital systems are doing in Winston-Salem is incredible, and will really serve to support everything that these businesses are doing, locating at the airport.
Yeah, and I think some of those 14,700 jobs will certainly spill over to Forsyth County, and folks in this county will have an opportunity to go after some of those jobs. And I just hope that we can continue to focus on regional growth. I've ever since I've heard you talk about that 20 years ago, I've been a huge proponent of it. Here's my last question, Robbie. You mentioned some of the institutional investors are starting to come into North Carolina, specifically the Triad. Obviously, we're going to start seeing larger companies wanting to come into the Triad. What's your message to smaller investors, small business owners, minority-owned firms? What do they need to be doing right now to be prepared for JetZero?
Number one, I would be talking to my bankers. I would be looking for to expand my financing sources of financing, because as business grows to this at this rate, if you're in business, you're going to grow with it. So I'd be looking at either raising the capital to expand, or finding someone who will lend you the capital to expand. That would be my number one thing.
Robbie, thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective as always, not just as a former mayor, but as someone who has helped shape Greensboro for decades. The Jet Zero announcement is a major win, but it also comes with responsibility to be smart, inclusive, and forward looking. We appreciate your insight and look forward to following your journey in this next mayoral race. And also to my audience, I always like to thank you for locking in. Make sure you stay tuned to WTOB, because every Sunday morning, that's where you can lock in with me. But if you happen to miss me there, hopefully you're subscribed to the podcast. You can get that on Spotify, Pandora, Apple, wherever you like to get your favorite podcasts. You can always lock in there. And until next time, y'all stay locked in.